It's Saturday, and you know what that means. Didn't want to steal that from Jim Ross, but it's not trademarked, and I like it, so I'm going to use it. Today is Saturday, July 31st, and this is episode 18 of Scnn, the Squared Circle News Network. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Patrick, and as always, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for so much for joining me always, and as long as you're here, please click the subscribe button. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me out, and you'll feel good about yourself after doing so. And once you click the subscribe, please click the thumbs up, the like button, and don't forget the little bell for notifications so that every single time that I upload fresh new content, you're made aware of it. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to waste any time. I want to get into this as quickly as possible. The WWE is at it again. It was announced today that World Wrestling Entertainment has parted ways with Bray Wyatt. WWE posted on its website that they have released Bray Wyatt, and they gave him the usual "we wish him well in his future endeavors" line of garbage that they give almost everybody. They missed a whole bunch of people in these last couple waves of releases, but this is standard for WWE. This is what they do, and this is, folks, this is crazy. I don't even know to find the right words as to what WWE is accomplishing here is difficult, because they've systematically over the last several months, going back to, I'm going to say going back to last year when they did their first their Black Wednesday release, and cut all that talent back then, and then this year's releases were just even bigger and more shocking. But look at the names, some of the names that they've released over this period of time. And yeah, you know what? You can say what you want. You can call AEW a WWE landfill. You can call it a bunch of WWE cast-offs. But AEW is giving talent whole new careers. They're giving them successes that they never had and never would have had in WWE. But let's go back. Let's take a look at who they've released. And I'm going to start at the low end of the totem pole. I'm going to start with, as much as I dislike these guys, the Good Brothers. You know, they've been rejuvenated. They found life on Impact. They found life on AEW. They're going to be probably working some programs in New Japan. Matt Cardona. It may not be much, but Matt Cardona has had a nice set of matches on Impact, and now he's the GCW champion. He won that belt from Nick Gage. And that, as far as I'm concerned, isn't a major title, but I'll tell you what, it's got the wrestling world talking, and that's what's important for a career. When people are talking about you, as long as it's not legal stuff and immoral stuff outside of the wrestling ring, if they're talking about you for reasons within the business, if you're in a storyline or a program that's catching attention, then that's a good thing. And that's what Matt Cardona's got. You got Miro, who, could anybody have been more over than Miro and the whole Miro Day campaign that he had going? This thing was so organic, and it took on a life of its own, and WWE squashed it. They buried Miro. Miro finally got his release, and now he's God's champion. He's the TNT champion on AEW, and he's having a career resurgence that he so much very deserves. This guy deserves so much better than he was getting in the WWE, and he's finally got it. You got Aleister Black. Aleister Black was so talented in WWE. He was so over with the fans. He started out in NXT. He won the NXT Championship. He got moved to the main roster, and then once again systematically buried. And the fans just craved to have Aleister Black in the ring, and they couldn't get it. And WWE will not give the fans what they want. They give the fans what the WWE wants to convince the fans that they want. You don't have a free will when you're a WWE fan. You have to like what they tell you like. And unfair? Yeah, absolutely. That's the way it is. You got Andrade. Started out in WWE as Andrade Cien Almas. Now he's Andrade El Idolo. And he's automatically got a presence on AEW TV, where he had some phenomenal matches in WWE. Absolutely phenomenal. There's no reason why they couldn't have made this guy a top contender for a world title. just cultivated his career over time and made him a special part of that program, and they absolutely chose not to. Now he's in a better place. Now he's building himself again, and he's showing what he's capable of. He's got this whole aura about him when he comes on camera. This whole, I just, for lack of a better term, this whole Scarface type thing, just looks great, sounds great. He's phenomenal at the ring. He's only had the one match so far. But you know what? I can't wait to see what this guy brings to the table, and he's going to start working a program now with Pac. It looks like. Don't know if he's going to be feuding with the Lucha Bros, but they're involved in the storyline. He's using them as kind of like a chess piece to build his character, and that's fine. He's going to be great. He's going to be great. He's going to be great. Last week, things hit the fan like never before. Last week was the beginning of a WrestleZance, a whole change in the whole landscape of professional wrestling, a throwback to a time when the best in the world, and I'm not using that term specific to one person, I'm saying the best in the world, as in the best talent in the world, was respected, appreciated, and given the chance to shine, and that's going to happen again. Because last week the news broke that Bryan Danielson and CM Punk had both signed contracts with AEW. Now, of course, that has not been 100% confirmed, and really no one sitting in front of a microphone wants to be the one to say, yeah, it's 100% confirmed, guaranteed it's going to happen, and then that slim chance that something falls through the cracks and it doesn't happen. Well, you know what? I'll be the first one to say this is going to happen. This is a done deal. It's happening. And I don't have sources. It's just I've got to speak from all the years that I've been a wrestling fan, what I know about professional wrestling, the instincts that I have, the feelings that I have. And I'm not going to say I'm 100% right on everything, but I feel completely confident enough to say that you are going to see both these guys have brand new, unbelievable careers in AEW. And I'm not going to complain about Bryan Danielson's career in WWE, because he did fine in WWE. He was one of the very few guys that was treated with any kind of respect. And you know what? He did some great things. He had the fans. He was always over with the fans, whether he was a babyface, whether he was a heel. He was always over with the fans. The fans loved him, and everything he did was successful. I would parallel his career a little bit to Chris Jericho, because he's reinvented himself a few times, and it doesn't matter what he does, the fans love him. It's hard for him to be a true blue heel because he gets cheered as a heel. It's just the way it is. He's one of those guys. CM Punk is the enigma of pro wrestling, and I've said this a million times, and I'll take it to my grave if I have to. I still believe that if CM Punk would have signed a contract with AEW last year, All Out, when they debuted in Chicago, it would have been a much bigger deal. It wasn't last year, it was the year before. I forget which All Out we're on right now, and I apologize for that. I should know. But the first year of All Out, the first year that All Out happened in AEW, CM Punk should have signed a contract then. There was negotiations then. There's no real clear-cut version of the story of what happened, but it didn't happen. It fell through. CM Punk didn't debut, and fans were confused and upset, and they didn't know who to blame. People actually blamed AEW, and AEW tried. Tony Khan tried like hell to sign CM Punk. Tony Khan wanted CM Punk on the AEW roster from day one. Excuse me. Tony Khan wanted to build. One of the guys that he wanted to build around was CM Punk, and it just didn't happen. It would have been earth-shattering if it would have happened then. It's still a big deal, absolutely. CM Punk is still that one guy that nobody knows what to expect. Nobody knows what they're going to get from the future with him. It's with CM Punk, it's always well, let's wait and see. And even when you get a sniff, a hint, a rumor of what might be going on, it's hard to latch onto it and believe it, because nothing's happened thus far. It's been like 8 years since CM Punk's been in the ring for the last time, and there's been this nonstop slew of rumors of what is he going to do? Is he talking to this group? Is he talking to that group? He worked this backstage program with WWE for a while, and everybody thought that meant 100% that he was going back to the WWE, but it just absolutely didn't. That program was a Fox product more than it was a WWE product. So, you just never knew or could possibly foretell in the future what's coming for CM Punk. But this is I'm just confident that it's done. The contract is signed. We're gonna see CM Punk. Still not sure exactly when it's going to be. I'm going to get into that in a little while, but I want to stick to this story right now because I'm kind of drifting off a little bit. I'm just going over the people that WWE have released and have been picked up by AEW. And now finally, this today, Bray Wyatt. Man, Bray Wyatt has been just an absolute workhorse. He's been a draw for the fans. He's over. He's always been over with the Wyatt family. The Eater of Worlds character that he did, which, looking back on his career and what he's done in the WWE, I think the Eater of Worlds was probably the best iteration of Bray Wyatt. And now he's got the Fiend, and he had the Firefly Funhouse. And let me be honest, I didn't like everything about that character. I liked the Firefly Funhouse. I liked the Fiend as a wrestler, but the things I didn't like was I didn't like the theatrical match that was filmed with John Cena. I'm all about suspension of reality for professional wrestling. I know it's got to happen, but that match was just a little too much. It was like it was the result of a bad drug trip. I couldn't get into it. I just couldn't. It was not something you're supposed to see on a wrestling show. It was not a wrestling match. It was a John Cena hallucination, and you should never be able to see another person's hallucinations. It's just it so far crosses that line of suspension of reality that I couldn't appreciate it. And I know it was popular with a lot of people, and I'm fine with that. Opinion's opinion. I've said that since day one, and I'm going to stick to that. If you liked it, then absolutely latch onto it and watch it over and over again and enjoy it as long as you can get enjoyment out of it. I'm just saying, for me, it was too much. It was I couldn't deal with it. But where I'm going here is Bray Wyatt was really the driving force and the creative force behind everything that he's ever done. I understand that Vince McMahon's always got final say on what comes out of a wrestler's mouth and what a wrestler does on TV, the clothes he wears, his hand gestures, everything. Vince McMahon is such a micromanaging control freak that there is no freedom of creation in WWE. There is zero. But somehow Bray Wyatt had some. In a world of none, Bray Wyatt had some. And good for him, but I guess at the end, it just didn't pay off. It wasn't enough for whatever reason. Vince McMahon didn't want it anymore, and now Bray Wyatt is released. And I got to tell you, this to me is a no-brainer. This is another absolute no-brainer. I believe that AEW is going to sign Bray Wyatt. His no-compete clause ends on October 29th. And he's a perfect fit for AEW. And specifically, if I had any power, any booking authority in AEW, I would make Bray Wyatt the leader of the Dark Order. Bray Wyatt and Brody Lee. Brody Lee was a member of the Wyatt family. And when Brody Lee passed, Bray Wyatt posted an extremely heartfelt and passionate tribute to Brody Lee. I believe these guys were just unbelievably close in and out of the ring, and I believe that there was no one in professional wrestling that Brody Lee would more give his blessing to than the Bray Wyatt to take over this role as the leader of the Dark Order. And the reason I would like to see this is the Dark Order, when AEW started, got a lot of flack. It was not everybody's cup of tea. It was criticized for different reasons. I loved Evil Uno and Stu Grayson as a tag team from day one. Whatever the gimmick was, I loved those guys. The thing that I wasn't crazy about was the gimps. I just thought that was a little weird. I didn't think it was distasteful or anything. It didn't seem to have chemistry with the rest of what was going on AEW. So loved Grayson and Uno, couldn't get enough of them. Was happy to see them every time in the ring. Wasn't crazy about the gimps, but I was a Dark Order supporter when a lot of other people were bashing it. I felt like it needed time to cultivate. It needed time to develop, and I felt like it was going to get where it needed to get. And Brody Lee from day one, coming out as the Exalted One, as the leader of the Dark Order, gave that group instant credibility. Brody Lee was the perfect exalted one, the perfect leader for the Dark Order. And he had this phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal way of being on television, on TNT, and on Dark, or wherever he appeared with the Dark Order, and being this absolute menacing character. Like, you just felt like if you were in the Dark Order, you would fear this guy with every fiber of your being. He just fit it perfectly. He played it to a T. Every segment that they were in, he never let up. He had the TNT title match where he took the title from Cody, where he absolutely squashed Cody Rhodes, and everything was just perfect. There was nothing bad about Brody Lee's time with the Dark Order. And then he would appear on Being the Elite, the Young Bucks web show, and he would bring that menacing character into the world of comedy. It was almost like he never broke character, but he interacted so well with the rest of the Dark Order, specifically John Silver. It was just gold. You couldn't go wrong with anything these guys were doing. And when Brody Lee passed, God Almighty, not very much has hit me harder than that in my lifetime. If I think about it or dwell on it too long, I will get choked up again. It was like that for me for a long time. But when Brody Lee passed, I couldn't really see another person within the confines of AEW that could take over that Dark Order leadership role and do justice to what Brody Lee had built. And that includes Hangman Page. I love Adam Page. This guy is a future multi-time world champion, and everything he does is great. But I can't see him leading the Dark Order. You got to bring the Dark Order back into that heel character fashion, and you need somebody menacing like Brody Lee. And I can't imagine anybody other than Bray Wyatt being able to step in and take it over. And like I said, these guys were so close. They were beyond friends. They were truly brothers. And I think Brody Lee would completely give his blessing, a thumbs up, and wholeheartedly endorse Bray Wyatt to be the new leader of the Dark Order. I think he could absolutely extend and add to that whole menacing character that Brody Lee started. Bray Wyatt, the Bray Wyatt, the leader of the Wyatt family, was the same type of character, although he was this backwoods redneck, whereas Brody Lee was the suit wearing guy. It's still, all you need to do is a little change of wardrobe, and you've got the magic that you had with Brody Lee. I think Bray Wyatt is definitely the guy to do this, and fingers crossed, I'm hoping this is something that I get a chance to see in the future. And, that's all I'm going to say on the whole Bray Wyatt thing. It's just another tragedy on behalf of the WWE, and I can't imagine WWE fans being okay with this. WWE fans just tend to fully follow and support everything that WWE does. And I've said it before, I was that way back when it was the WWF, when WCW and WWF were feuding and battling for ratings. I was 100% WWF, WWE when it turned. But at that time, the product was worthy of my allegiance, was worthy, was worthy of me supporting them 100% and not wanting to switch over and give any sort of endorsement to anybody else. They were somebody that gave quality programming to the fans at one time, and they're just not anymore. So, if you're truly enjoying this product, by all means, go ahead. But if you're saying you enjoy it, and in the back of your head you're thinking, damn, all these guys that I love are going away, what are they doing? But that's your inside voice, and your outside voice keeps saying, but I'm a WWE supporter for life, never giving up on them. Think about what you're doing. Because as long as you stand there and say, this is okay, and I'm going to keep watching this product, and I'm going to keep supporting this product, they will never change. They will never respect the fans. They will never give the fans what they want. They release all these people that I talked about throughout the course of this episode, and they're bringing Goldberg back for a match. They're bringing John Cena back short term. You give me John Cena full time, all the time, great. But John Cena is not a wrestler anymore. He's an actor. He's coming back to spark ratings. The Rock is going to come back to spark ratings. WWE keeps bringing back these part-time, over-the-hill talents and releasing guys that are in the prime of their career and giving them the best that they could possibly give. And WWE is releasing these guys and sending them to the competition. And Vince McMahon on his conference call said that he doesn't consider AEW competition, that he doesn't know what they're doing over there, and he doesn't consider them competition because they're not as big as WCW was with Ted Turner. Well, guess what, Vince? If you don't consider them competition, then why are you counter-programming them? If you don't consider them competition, then why is it being reported all over the internet that your people are talking to advertisers at AEW and talking to TV supporters at AEW and trash talking them and trying to make them look bad so that they lose sponsors? This is 100% your competition. SmackDown and Raw are consistently under a 2 in ratings, and AEW is consistently growing. They're at a 1.1, 1.2 right now. Once Bryan Danielson and CM Punk come on, you're probably looking at a 1.5, 1.6, and that's knocking right on the door where your big flagship shows are. So guess what, Vince? This is competition, and it's going to get uglier for you. So you can either keep shitting on the fans and giving them this garbage program and convincing them that it's great, brainwashing them, or you can realize that this is professional wrestling and fans are not stupid. They're not naive. They're not idiotic rednecks. People that watch wrestling are intelligent and they want better programming, and you're choosing not to give it to them. You're choosing not to give it to them. It's not that you're not capable. You've still got one of the best rosters in the world. And you're choosing to let all your talent just squander and wilt away in NXT and in 205 Live and in house shows and whatever else you got going on, and then putting over this small clique of talent on your flagship shows and bringing back archaic Jurassic talent from the past to put on TV and in pay-per-views to get that little rating spike, that thing that's going to get you over the edge in your next conference call maybe. Vince, whatever happens is on your shoulders, and the careers of these people that work under you is on your shoulders. And if you're going to choose to let your product fall apart like this, and these people consistently get cut and ask for releases and just let their contracts expire and go elsewhere, you can look in the mirror and you have nobody to thank but yourself. This is all you're doing. And that's all I got to say about that subject. I want to go on to AEW quickly now. And last week on Dynamite, AEW continued to drop major hints about CM Punk and Bryan Danielson debuting with AEW, mostly CM Punk. The second episode of AEW Rampage, a new show that's going to be airing on TNT, beginning on TNT, moving to TBS next year. But it's going to be Friday night at 10 o'clock. The first episode is August 13th. The second episode is going to be, August 20th. And the second episode, it was announced on this past episode of Dynamite, is going to debut from the United Center in Chicago, which just happens to be the hometown of CM Punk. That was hit number 1. Hit number 2 was they're subtitling this episode of Rampage, The First Dance. Previous to this announcement, the week prior, CM Punk trademarked the term The Last Dance. And the other hint that was dropped on this show was Darby Allin cut a quick promo talking about Rampage broadcasting from the United Center. And he said he wants to see the best in the world come to AEW. And of course, CM Punk has always been called and marketed as the best in the world. So I mean, all the pieces are there, guys. Everything's there. It's happening. My only uncertainty is CM at this event, or is somehow the news going to break at this event and he's going to be at All Out, which is also going to be in Chicago. I don't know. I think Tony Khan, if he did not physically have CM Punk at the show, would be taking a big chance. right or wrong, he got a lot of flack for the announcement of having a major future Hall of Fame wrestler debuting with AEW, and it turned out to be Christian Cage. I mean, Christian Cage is everything Tony Khan said he is. He's a major wrestler. He was a major wrestler with the WWE. You know, he was a multi-time tag team champion. He held world titles. He held, I believe, intercontinental titles. He's had belts all over, and he is most likely a future WWE Hall of Famer. If not, he certainly deserves to be. He's in that category of people who would be considered, but you know, Tony Khan got flack for that, and I understand, because this is all within this period of time where when you hear signing a major wrestler, signing a major talent, future Hall of Famer, this, that, the first person that you always think of is CM Punk. And if not CM Punk, there's certainly other names that you might gravitate to before you would think of Christian. You know, you could think of Steve Austin. Maybe somehow he's not on WWE TV anymore. Maybe you could get him for a one-off or for some sort of program. Ric Flair, who knows? There's a bunch of names that you just don't know. But you know, certainly, I just think that the backlash that AEW and Tony Khan specifically got for Christian Cage signing was unwarranted. But regardless, you know, it's a new chapter, it's a new page now, and CM Punk's coming. The one thing I do not know is when Bryan Danielson will make his debut. I mean, realistically, it could be any time. It really could. He's doesn't have a no compete clause. His contract pretty much expired. It's not like he was released or asked to be released. So it could be any time. It's just a matter of timing it right, so you get the most bang for your buck with bringing out a talent of that magnitude. And you know, we'll just have to wait and see how they work this. And they're going to have to. Not they're going to have to, but I'm sure Tony Khan is going to find a way to make the introduction of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson have some sort of chemistry, some sort of cohesion to fit the right way within the storyline. And speaking of the episode of Rampage that's going to be emanating from Chicago in the United Center, it was reported by Mark Middleton of WrestlingHeadliner.com. Tickets went on sale yesterday at 11 a.m. Now keep in mind, this was after the episode of Dynamite where the hints were dropped. Tickets went on sale at 11 a.m. and in 45 minutes they sold 12,000 seats. As of the end of that initial run, there was only about 100 seats or so left available. But now this is a 23,000 seat stadium, so I could easily see additional blocks of tickets being opened up periodically if Tony Khan so chooses, if they have the room. I don't know what the entire available seating would be for an event like this. You know, you've got to consider areas have to be blocked off for production equipment and for staff and things like that. So it's not like it's as easy and as crazy as it sounds. It's not as easy as it is for a sporting event that would normally emanate from a venue like this to tell you how many seats there are, because you've got to really map out what you need for your equipment. So it's like I said, with a 23,000 seat stadium, I'm sure I'd be shocked if Tony Khan didn't open up more blocks of tickets as we get closer to the event. But that's a huge run of ticket sales, 12,000 seats in 45 minutes for a 1 hour show. And that's the nuts and bolts of it is, you know, it's a 1 hour show. It's how do you organize the itinerary of the show to get CM Punk involved enough for it to be impactful and the way it should be. And the way I see it is, you know, it's going to be a 1 hour show. They're going to begin the show. They're going to run through their card of matches, promos, and it's just going to be probably seconds or no more than a minute or so before going off the air. And CM Punk is going to make his appearance and probably get in Darby Allin's face, and that's where they go off the air. So I'm looking forward to this, and it's like I'm not as excited as I would have been initially with CM Punk with the first All Out in Chicago, but I'm definitely definitely glad to see him finally signing and coming. He's an important part of professional wrestling, the history of professional wrestling. And I say history, but he's only been involved in pro wrestling for, you know, I couldn't even tell you exactly when he first launched in WWE, but it hasn't been more than, a decade and a half, 2 decades. But like I said, he hasn't been in the ring for almost 8 years, so it's not like I'm not comparing him to like a Ric Flair. I'm not saying that he's that type of historical character, but he's a part of pro wrestling history because of the things he accomplished and the things he's known for. The pipe bomb interview, the really just holding WWE over a barrel, and he was ready to just absolutely walk out at one point as the champion and end his WWE career there. And somehow whether it was the money or whatever they did to get him to re-sign, they did. But CM Punk is a guy that commands attention, and he's going to get attention. And I don't necessarily like this term needle mover, because let me put this in WWE terms. Goldberg's a needle mover. Guess what? Goldberg's going to wrestle a match. People that haven't watched wrestling in 30, 35 years are going to tune in because they remember Goldberg and they remember what he did in WCW 30 years ago. But guess what? Goldberg's going to be gone. And then that small group of people that tuned in to see Goldberg, that turned on their hearing aids and turned on the TV to see Goldberg, they're not going to watch after that. So the needle's going to move back in the other direction. The reason I don't like the term needle mover is because I don't know that there's any one person outside of maybe The Rock, Steve Austin. I can't put Hulk Hogan in this category anymore, but there's less than a handful of people that you could put on a program where they're going to spike ratings so high that it's just incredible and noticeable. Like, I can't think of anybody, even The Rock. I can't imagine that if you put The Rock on AEW television, I can't imagine that AEW's ratings would go up from a 1.1, 1.2 to a 3. I don't see that happening. But the way I like to use the term needle mover is all this talent that AEW has collectively now. They've got their homegrown talent. They've got Kenny Omega, they got the Bucks, they got Adam Page, they got Darby Allin, they got MJF. They've got this whole collective of talent who's been growing with AEW since day one and making waves and getting attention. And now they've got this group that they've signed and acquired from WWE. They've got Miro, they've got Aleister Black, they've got Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Andrade, Miro. These guys collectively are needle movers, because once people tune in to see this initial thing with CM Punk, because they're going to hear that CM Punk is with AEW, and the lapsed wrestling fan, the wrestling fans that remember CM Punk are going to want to see what's going on, they're going to tune in. And then once they tune in to see CM Punk, they're going to see all this other talent, and they're going to realize that professional wrestling is back, that there's a program worth watching again. And then they're going to tell two friends, and then they're going to tell two friends. And like the old shampoo commercial used to say, and so on and so on and so on. And eventually AEW's ratings will grow. And that's what I call moving the needle. It doesn't have to happen in one show, 1-2 shows. It's a progression. And it's a smart progression that Tony Khan has going right now. So I am looking forward to all that's to come. Like I said earlier on, it's a WrestleZance. That's my word. I'm going to hashtag it on Twitter soon. Jump on, get involved, be part of the movement. I'm going to let it go for there. I'm going to sign off for now. But as always, I got to thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Thank you so much for watching the episode. Please, if you're here, hit that subscribe button, hit the like, the thumbs up, give me a click on the bell for notifications so that every time that I upload new fresh content, you're the first to be made aware. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Squared Circle News Network. As always, I'm your host, Darren Patrick. And until next time, please be good to yourself and please be good to each other. Bye-bye.